on my computer.
Thank you, Sheila.
Sheila.
Sheila's the recorder.
Thank you, Sheila.
Okay. We're starting.
Now we'll share. What?
We're starting very late now, but that's okay. Mercy, right? We just had a whole. Okay. We're good.
Okay, I have to get rid of that. Yeah, look up there and see myself. All right. So I'm Amanda. Nice to see you. So all familiar faces. Hello. You're not in RCIA. So anyway, tonight we're going to talk about sacramentals, devotionals, and imaginative prayer. So I'm going to talk a little bit. Susan has things that she's going to interject and share. And then we're going to end the night with some imaginative prayer. And so actually this is a really good space for that. So hey, you knew what you were doing. Yeah, all right. You totally did. Just give yourself credit. All right, so there on your little handouts, again, it's not the best quality because my printer is going crazy on me, but if you would like to take notes, there should have been lines there for you to take notes, but use it however you want. So what are sacramentals? And that's one thing that growing up Protestants, I came into the church going, what is that? Is that the same thing as sacraments? What sacramentals? What does that mean? Something that was new to me that I didn't know anything about. So maybe you find yourself in that same boat. But here's what the Catechism says. The sacramentals are sacred signs which bear resemblance to the sacraments. They always include prayer, often accompanied by a specific sign, such as laying on of hands, sign of the cross, sprinkling of holy water, etc. And then sacramentals do not confer the grace of the Holy Spirit the way that sacraments do, but by the church's prayer, they prepare us to receive grace and dispose us to cooperate with it. So what does that mean? There's actually 3 types of sacramentals. There are blessings, and then consecrations, which also can be called devotions, are popular pieties, and then exorcisms. I'm going to talk about the first 2. My husband and Father Bolster can talk to you about the 3rd one because that's just not my boat. What? Yes, Susan can talk about the 3rd. I do not have a slide for it, but you can just do that if tonight's the night for that. Some sacramentals include blessings or blessed items. So sacramentals can be certain blessed items that are spiritually beneficial to the faithful. For example, holy water. So holy water recalls to mind our baptism. Certain medals. So like I'm wearing a miraculous medal, a rosary, a scapular, blessed salts, crucifixes, candles, scapulars, priestly blessings that they pray over you. All of those fall under blessings and blessed items.
And I'm gonna interrupt.
Yes.
And just say.
She's going to surprise me like 1,000 times to do that.
So it's important to understand that it's not like the thing that's doing it. So like,
Yes.
It's not like you have some magic charm that's doing something. It's the grace of God working through us and our belief and an item, because in scripture, Jesus used things himself. So like when the hemorrhaging woman touched his cloak was a conduit of the grace of him and her belief in it, that if I just touch his cloak, that she could be healed, right? So it's not that his cloak was a magic charm, it's that God uses our belief and these items and things to help spread grace like in the world and in our lives. Does that make sense? So it's not worshiping a thing, it's not a magic charm.
I actually have that in the slide.
Oh,
Yeah, there you
I
go.
cut you off.
No, you're totally fine. You're totally fine. But it's not yet, so that's good. All right. So these items, since they are blessed, sacramentals should always be treated with reverence and devotion. It is actually a custom of Catholics to kiss a rosary or a scapular if they've accidentally been dropped on the ground, or the sign of the cross, or genuflecting in church is something that should be done deliberately and prayerfully, because it is a sacramental. It's to call to mind the grace, call to mind a relationship with the Lord. And so it's not like, we're not doing it like that. Like my 4-year-old might do it, but doing it more with reverence and purpose. Also, blessed object of devotion, it's good to remember that it is the blessing that the priest gives an object that makes it sacramental. The blessing gives God ownership over that object and dedicates it to him, and then he works through that. This is why it's very important to have sacramentals blessed. Without the blessing, they don't hold they're not a conduit of grace the way that they are if there is that priestly blessing on them. So if I just bought this medal and just was wearing it, it's just a piece of jewelry. But when I have it blessed, then it becomes a sacramental. All right, I'll skip down to that slide.
And I'm gonna type in about sacraments, which we will learn later, have the power of the church behind them. So no matter the priest's state, like if he could be really sinful, but once he like puts on that chasuble and pronounces the proper words of a sacrament, the sacrament is conferred, the power of it is there. But it matters if the priest is holy when it comes to blessing sacramentals. So in other words, the priest, it's by the work of the doer instead of by the work of the church. So the sacraments are the work of the church. The sacramental is the work of the doer. So if you have a priest that's sinful, and yes, we do, so because, you know, people and mess, just like everywhere, then the blessing that's conferred doesn't have the power behind it the way it would if it's like a holy priest that blesses it. Because it has to do with his belief and your belief that makes God's grace work through it. So a really sinful priest that's living a horrible life doesn't really believe, because he wouldn't be doing that if he did, right? Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So on her, sorry, my phone's ringing. Sacramentals are not worship. We are not worshiping the stuff. We're not worshiping Mary. We're not worshiping, you know, if it's a Saint Michael medal, we're not worshiping Saint Michael. We're not worshiping particular buildings or objects or locations. They are not to be placed in a higher importance than our worship of God. And so that's not what they are. They are an object that's helped us bring us closer, helps us practice our faith in a deeper, more meaningful way. But they do not replace that worship, and they are not in and of themselves worship. They're also, as Susan was saying, not superstition. They're not to be used like a magic wand or a genie. It's not like, oh, if I rub this medal 10 times, I get whatever I want. That's not how it works. Sacramentals should not be thought of as contracts, investments, or good luck charms. They are practices meant to draw us into deeper relationship with God and deeper into practice of our faith. And so I wanted to pop that one in there and then come back. So the first type of sacramental was blessings and blessed objects. The second type, do you want to show some of yours?
Yeah,
So the second type?
So on the table here, I've got like these are known as Saint Benedict medals. These are known as Saint Benedict medals in the bag. These have been blessed by the diocesan exorcist. And so this would be used like basically if you feel like if you if you feel like you're undergoing like a spiritual attack, you can wear that as like, you know, the grace from that protecting you, because Saint Benedict, so it's also the people involved, was like a very holy priest who also dealt with exorcisms and stuff like that. So we have Saint Benedict medals. We have the rosary is one of them. I didn't put one out because I will be giving you a rosary later, and that's one that a lot of Catholics pray every day. And again, there's prayers that get, like, you can look up the prayers that go with these. This one is called the Infant of Prague. That's been been blessed in Latin by Father Bolster. You need one of those too. So, and the Infant of Prague is a statue and a devotion that's, guess where it is? In Prague. And it's basically, there's stories that are involved with all of these things, and you can look up like the story and the prayer that goes with it. I've got the Divine Mercy Chaplet. This is one of my favorite. This is prayed on a rosary. And basically, one of the saints had they call it like an apparition of our Lord, who told her about the mercy he wanted to spread people, and gave her a prayer to pray for, especially for souls that are in danger of dying and don't know God. You pray this prayer for them so that the mercy of God can be extended to them. So, and it's prayed on the rosary. We've got like that. These ones over here were blessed, I think, by Father Ed, and they have prayer cards in them. Spiritual communion. That's like you can't make communion, but you can pray to be united to the Eucharist. I've got devotionals that are the saints day by day. We Catholics, we like our people, right? And there's people for every single day. There's a saint for every single day of the year. And it tells you the name of the saint and the prayer that goes with it, and a little bit about the saint. And always you're asking the saint to pray for you or pray for your intention. You're not worshiping the saint. You're asking them to pray basically with you.
I'm not gonna take that one.
You can have it.
I have it.
Yeah.
What is today?
Okay.
What is that?
That.
Saint Vincent de Paul.
Right.
Yeah, there you
So
go.
Saint Vincent de Paul was a French priest, and he was known for helping the impoverished, helping the poor in extraordinary ways. Lots of miracles associated through him. God works miracles through him. So really good one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So for example, it just gives you a little reflection about Saint Vincent de Paul, like Susan just did, but then it has a prayer. And so it says, Saint Vincent, let me pray in and through my service to the poor. So it's asking that saint to intercede for us on behalf of us, because in our faith,
We did the Communion of Saints class. For those of you that are new, you have to watch the class on the Communion of Saints that talks about it is you and Jesus, but he also wants us connected in a mystical body with each other. He's the head, and we're to build each other up. So we talk to the saints in heaven just like we talk to our friends on earth. So Amanda, will you pray for me?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Will you pray
Saint
with
Vincent
me?
de Paul, will you pray for me?
Yes. Will you pray with me that we can feed the poor? Saint Vincent de Paul, will you pray with us that we can feed the poor? And that's the idea, because they're actually like as alive as you can get, because they're in heaven, right? So there's nothing wrong with asking for their help.
Yeah,
And Jesus wants us connected. That's the. So those of you that are new, watch this class on the Communion of Saints, and it explains it a little bit better.
Exactly. Which brings us directly into devotions. And so devotions is another type of sacramental. So devotions are the religious sense of the Christian people has always found expression in various forms of piety. So there's different forms of piety that have been founded by different saints. So, there's the devotion to the Divine Mercy, which is Saint Faustina. There is, a lot.
There's a
drawing a
lot.
blank.
Sacred Heart,
Sacred Heart,
Immaculate Heart,
yes.
the Rosary. There's the Flame of Love. There's.
I have a list.
Yes.
I don't even know. So also, like the veneration of relics.
Yeah.
So, want to explain relics?
Yeah, relics are super weird and fun for Catholics, I guess. So this is one of the weird things we do, but it is scriptural, and it comes from the book of Maccabees, and then again that that touching of the cloak. There was also in the book of Acts where they just wanted to be in the shadow of St. Paul or St. Peter, or they wanted to touch something that they owned. So we have relics in the church of actual saints. So like this one here is St. John Vianney. He was known as the Cure d'Ars. Ars was a town in France. When he got there, all the men were at bars drunk, and all the wives were at home, like wanting their men to come home and help them, and the town was a mess, and there was just like sin everywhere. And he started preaching and sitting in the confessional, and within a short period of time, the bars were closed, the husbands were home, families were being built up because they saw the light of Christ in him. So with a relic, it's either going to be, this is the weird part of their body, so it could be like their hair or like bone, or it's going to be something that they wore or carried with them. So a first-class relic is part of a body of a saint, and a second-class relic is something that they wore or owned. And then if you have something that's yours and you touch it to a relic, a first or second, it becomes a third-class relic. That basically you're asking for the blessing of God and the saint onto the item that you own. So a lot of miracles happen where people are healed when relics are around. So, and that's just, again, it's not the person, it's not because we have, I don't even know what's in here. I think it's part of his habit. The habit is like cloak that a priest would wear. I think that's what's in here. It's not that, it's like your belief and God's grace that allows these things to happen. And God wants to work through us, and he wants to work through creation. And he, like, as Catholics, we're like physical, tangible people. Jesus lived in this body. He was incarnation, not this body, but his body. Hopefully.
Wow.
Hopefully. But he doesn't hate the things that we love and partake in. It's got to be properly ordered. We have to know that everything comes from God, right? You can't think the thing is the big gift. It's Christ that's the big gift working through the things. So this one's John Vianney. I got a bunch up in the office too. But John Vianney had the light of Christ so in him that the entire town became like a beacon of hope, where all these people, like, again, the bars shut down, and he would sit in the confessional and just hear people's confessions and reconcile them to God. That's what he did, like, for hours and hours and hours on it. Wow. He is the patron of diocesan priests.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So these are all different types of devotions, and here are some examples of them. Well, this is the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops describes devotions as expressions of love and fidelity that arise from the intersection of one's own faith, culture, and the gospel of Jesus Christ. So common examples would be the Way of the Cross, the Rosary, praying the Angelus, various litanies, devotions to the Blessed Sacrament, Sacred Heart, Immaculate Heart, Holy Face of Jesus, certain pilgrimages. So what's the road? El Camino. So that's,
the Way of St. James.
Yes. Observing, the month of the Rosary in October, or the month of Mary in May. All of those things are sacramental devotions and devotional practices. Now, I will just pause right here and say, don't get overwhelmed. Don't feel like you have to understand it. Like I said, this is year 7 that I will be Catholic, and I think maybe just in the last 2 years has been it's kind of like unfolding of an onion. I mean, you literally could be a scholar of the Catholic faith, studying it your entire life and never know it all. And people do that, and they don't ever know it all, because it's so rich and it's so It's wide and it's deep. And so don't feel overwhelmed, like, and don't let it put you off. Don't go, well, hey, I don't know about that. I don't know, that might keep me from, becoming Catholic. One of the things that I have found beauty in is something that someone told me on my journey. And that was, if you really believe in your heart that this is where God's leading you, then all the little pieces, he will peel back the onion. He will show you the meaning of that for you and for your life. Sacramentals can mean something to me and mean something different to Susan and something different to Josh and to Will. So it doesn't have to be somebody else's faith. We're not trying to mimic it. She may have a devotion to the Sacred Heart, and yeah, that's nice. It's not required. I don't have to have a devotion to the Sacred Heart to be a good Catholic. These are particular things, devotions, sacramentals that the Lord just calls you to, just because it's an expression of maybe your personality or the way that he created you, or something that you have a connection with because of your life story that's really important to you. And so just let the Lord unfold this for you. And so tonight you're like, yeah, wow, I get that. You want to dive deeper? Do. But if you find it like, put the brakes on that one, it's okay. You can't put the brakes on the Eucharist. That's kind of required, but this is not. But this does help to deepen our faith and bring us more into practice of our faith, and brings us a conduit of grace that's just a little bit different than other things. So.
Yeah, and I would say, if you don't understand it, you're just go to prayer. I don't get this. Lord, I don't get it.
Absolutely.
So you got to explain it to me so I can get it. And so she mentioned the Sacred Heart. That was a Saint Margaret Mary who saw the heart of Jesus beating with love for her, and that his blood was dropped for her, and it had a crown of thorns around the heart. So there's a picture that goes with it. And it's basically he wanted to unite his heart with her. I think he wants to unite his heart with all of us. Mm-hmm. So it's good devotion. But it's like Amanda said, there's so many, you can get overwhelmed. So and I go, I have seasons where I'll feel the Lord is telling me, hey, I want you to pray this. So I picked up this. This is called the Anima Christi, and this was written by Saint Ignatius Loyola. Soul of Christ, sanctify me. Body of Christ, save me. Blood of Christ, inebriate me. Water from the side of Christ, wash me. Passion of Christ, strengthen me. O good Jesus, hear me. Within thy wounds, hide me. Suffer me not to be separated from thee. From the malignant enemy, defend me. In the hour of my death, call me, and hide, and bid me to come to thee, that with thy saints I may promise thee forever and ever. Amen. Or praise thee forever and ever. Amen. So that's a beautiful prayer, and it was written by one of the saints. So it's you can look up Saint Ignatius Loyola, and you can pray the Anima Christi. Easy devotion, easy prayer, not super overwhelming because there's so many to pick from. But like I said, and she was saying, you don't have to pray all of them. You don't have to pray any of them, but they do. Their purpose is to draw you closer to the heart of Christ. That's their purpose.
What time do we go for dinner?
What?
Just so I don't go over.
So dinner is usually ready around some 30-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so Susan was saying, there's seasons that we go through. I found that I started just keeping track. I kept have a little journal that I just keep track in of different saints that I feel the Lord is bringing into my life in different ways. And so sometimes that comes through there's a Saint of the Year, Word of the Year generator that you can do online, and you can just go and just Google Saint of the Year generator, and it will pull up this little thing that Jen Fulweiler, she's a Catholic comedian, but she used to be in like IT and computer programming. And so she made up this little Saint of the Year generator, and you just click the button and it will pop up just this random saint. Sometimes I like to do that. So I will do that. I do it at the beginning of the year. And I do it anytime that I'm going to like a certain retreat. And I'm just like, Lord, what saint, do you want to kind of bring alongside me for this particular retreat or this particular season in life? So as you're going through RCIA, if you wanted to do that, you could do that. But I just kind of keep track. So I went to this one retreat, it's called RCIA. Have you guys ever heard of RCIA? Okay, and you sit at tables like this all weekend, and each table has its own saint name. And so it's just totally random, and just whatever saint that was, is like, I don't believe there's any accidents in life. And so one time, this person said, well, you can just put too much Jesus in this stuff. I was like, well, actually, no, I don't think you can, because that's what this whole life is about. He came and he died for us so that we could live for him, so that we are bringing thy kingdom come here on earth as it is in heaven. And so it's all about Jesus, and he is speaking to us everywhere. We just have to listen. Who is it? I think it's Teresa. It says, in the silence of the heart, God speaks. So if you notice, if you see these things, he speaks to you. So I just make a practice of noticing. So like that St. Margaret Mary was my table saint. So for a season, I just really made it a point to kind of learn about her, read some of the prayers and devotions that surround her. And, it was for a season, and it was just it wasn't like, oh, you're going to follow this saint for all of your life, because we're not like following saints, we're following Jesus, right? But there are some devotions that are particular, so you can become devoted to the Sacred Heart, you can become consecrated, you can do a consecration to Jesus, consecration to Mary, consecration to Joseph, or to Jesus through Joseph. So you can do those types of concentrations. I wanted to say concentrations. Consecrations that just help to deepen your faith. And that is something that some people decide to do for their life. They're like, this is what God's calling me to. But it doesn't have to be. It can be for a season, or it can be for longer. You just have to discern, pray, ask the Lord what he's calling you to. And just in the last year, there's a particular kind of spirituality in the Catholic faith that I feel like the Lord is drawing me closer to. Like, oh, that's interesting. So I'll just pick up the saints that are associated with that particular type of spirituality and read more about them and learn more about them and see what the Lord has to speak to me through that, because there's so much richness.
You will have to pick a confirmation saint.
Yeah, well, there you go.
And that is
You can pick it.
You can say is like walking with you towards heaven. Like their goal from heaven is to get you there. And they're your friend, and I always say they speak to you, like you pick them, but they really pick you. Which is another reason I have this saint book, because like as you start reading it, there might be a name that it might be just a name. Like why does this name pop out to me of this person, And like for me with my confirmation saints, I picked Daniel, which yes, that's old. I know that's the Old Testament. It's so funny. Like Old Testament people count because Jesus went and got them when heaven opened up and took them to heaven. So, but I had a teacher that was like, no, he's Old Testament. You can't have him. So you have to pick a different saint, Daniel. And there was like this hermit that lived up on a pillar. And I said, Lord, I'll write my report about him and he can walk with me, but I really want this guy over here. And later I found out, like, I was correct that he is Saint Daniel from the Old Testament in the lion's den. Because Jesus, when he descends into hell during those 3 days, that's who he goes and gets, are those faithful people, and takes them to heaven. So And yeah, so he was my, and they told me I had to feminize the name, so it's Danielle was my confirmation name, yeah, so. But I was.
It wasn't 2021, right?
But I don't make you do that, and if the male saint that's speaking to you, like, you know, then that's fine. And basically, Daniel, for me, like my father would read that story to me when I was little, and I would like sit on his lap and he would talk about faith like Daniel. And I was like, I want faith like that. I want to be able to go into the lion's den and not get devoured. So that's why I picked that saint. It spoke to me, and all those years later, it's become even more important to me. And in ministry, you know, you can get devoured in ministry.
Really
if you
easily.
have to like have faith, great faith. And so all of you will have to pick a confirmation saint if you choose to continue on this journey. So that book gives you different saint names and you can look them up. And there's, who's yours again? Catherine of Alexandria?
Yeah, so, yeah. She is a good one, but she definitely picked me because when we had to do that, so my husband and I were going through RCIA and it was late November. So we still had till, you know, Easter. I had not picked a confirmation saint yet. But some things precipitated in our life that our priest was like, we're doing this now. So here's the dates that you can pick. And we chose Christmas Day. And so I had to pick a saint like that. And we hadn't gotten to that class yet. I didn't know. I was like, I don't know. I don't know any saints. Like, what? And so Jansen, if y'all heard his story, like was very clearly St. Paul, like very, very clearly. That's what drew him into the Catholic faith. But for me, I'm like, I don't know. So I went on this little search of like patron saints of like, at the time I was teaching. And so patron saints of teachers. Oh, that'd be fun. So she picked me because clearly I didn't know what I was doing. But she was Catherine of Alexandria. She was very articulate in arguing the faith and defending the faith. And there's accounts of her, you know, arguing like theologians that were not Christian and winning these arguments like over and over and over again. And so I was like, that's my girl, totally my girl. And so she's the patron saint of lawyers, which is, I started out college pre-law, and then she's the patron saint of teachers. I was like, oh, that's perfect, there you go. So that's how she picked me, but she's amazing.
Yeah, and for the three of you that are there, her husband is a former Protestant pastor, and he's taught some of our classes.
Catherine was
What?
the Edward mom, right?
No, that was a different Catherine. So this is Catherine of Alexandria. Yeah, there's so many Catherines.
Lots of Catherines.
Right.
Lots of Catherines. Catherine of Siena, she wasn't an emperor, not now. Helen, St. Helen was Constantine's mom, and she is the reason we have so many relics, because she
I
went.
look pictures, y'all, let me show you.
St. Helen, like she was Constantine's mother, and she actually founded the true cross. And the story of how she found it was they had the field where they buried the crosses, and she had them bring a sick person, and they dug up all these crosses, and she just had them lay the sick person on these crosses, and they laid her on one of them, and she got better, and she was healed. And she's like, that's the true cross.
That's the one.
That's the one right there.
Her sacramental.
She brought all that stuff back.
She brought all of it back to Rome. So a lot of the relics that the Catholic Church has are because of St. Helen. So she's a cool saint too. Yeah. So, and you know, they've then taken pieces of the true cross, and you'll see them like in different churches around the world, just a small little piece of it. So it's like a relic that we have. Yeah.
And Alexandria actually appeared to St. Joan of Arc.
Right.
She did.
And she was a child, didn't live.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
She
So
was
St. Joan of
young
Arc.
to me.
Yeah, she saw St. Michael, Catherine of Alexandria,
And Mary.
and Mary. And she was, yeah, she was
Good company of that saint that takes me.
Right. All right.
Yes, and actually they tried to, so her symbol is like this wheel, because there's like this wheel where they would like literally put you on it and have the horses stretch you out and drag you and dismember you. That's how they tried to kill her. But when she touched the wheel, it disintegrated. And so then they had her beheaded. But I feel like that's the story of a lot of saints. They tried to kill him some other way, and then
And it doesn't
work. So
Well,
just
I mean,
cut
that's
them off.
what, that's about St. Paul was that way, where they tried to kill him, so I'm gonna find her, like.
Just off with your head. It's Queen of Hearts.
That's
All right.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
No, that's fine. All right. So another devotion, like it's up here, is being devoted or consecrated to Mary. And so as a convert, that is one of the most common questions that I get, and I know other converts say that's a common question that they get is, it's really hard for you to, kind of believe in Mary and start worshiping Mary. And I don't worship Mary, so let's stop right there. But that's a common misconception. And so I know growing up in my Protestant faith, I was literally taught that Catholics aren't Christians, they don't go to heaven, and they worship false gods and idols and Mary. And that's just what I was taught. And I didn't have any reason not to believe that until I started being drawn to the Catholic faith and went into RCIA and started learning more about it. It's like, oh, whoa. That is not what I was taught growing up. And so I have a little story that I will share. Let's see, we only have 6 minutes there, so.
Well, let me see what she. Yeah, you keep going.
Oh,
She
keep
was
going.
texting me. She texted
All right.
me.
I don't normally, I speak in front of crowds of people for a living. I never, ever speak from notes. But I did write this down. I spoke this at Theology on Tap. Yes, Theology on Tap. My Protestant brother, who's like 23, said, wait a minute, what? Y'all sit around and drink beer and talk about God? I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, maybe I want to become Catholic.
Tomorrow night?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is tomorrow night.
It is tomorrow night.
Debbie-
Hey, Debbie's speaking.
Debbie-
Debbie Smith, you do
It'll
not
be
want
in
to
this
miss her.
room, 6:30 is like socializing, get food and beer, don't get drunk.
She's hilarious.
Okay, and Debbie will be talking about evangelization, and she's called the barstool evangelizer.
She's hilarious. You will enjoy that if you
It's
decide
not
to
every
come.
Tuesday, right? That's
No,
something-
it's once a month.
Once a month.
All right. No. So anyway, I did write a couple of things down because I just don't want to forget. But I feel like Mary wasn't hard for me. And so when people ask me that question, I'm like, no, it just wasn't that hard. I don't really know why, except for that there's just that grace from the Lord on my life and my heart, a divine grace, I'm sure, that Mary was just never a difficult issue for me. I didn't understand her role in my faith. I didn't know anything about her really, other than what I had learned from the nativity scenes growing up, the Gospel of Luke. That's just pretty much all I knew. I had no idea how to pray the rosary. I didn't know what the rosary was. I didn't know what to do with that thing. I didn't know, like, do you wear it like a necklace? Or, had no idea. So I didn't know anything about her. I didn't know about the different titles of Mary, different apparitions. Have we talked about that yet?
Not really. We haven't done our Mary class. We
Okay.
did at the Communion of Saints, and you'll remember the Latin term latria is the worship reserved for God alone. And hyperdulia is what we call veneration of Mary, and dulia is veneration of the saints. And Mary is the highest saint because Jesus came to earth through her. And so when we do our consecration, we are asking her to draw us closer to her son. We're going to Jesus through her the way he came to us through her. And it's basically like the motherly love of a son. We're like, can you teach us that? That's what that's about.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to go into a full teaching. I'll save that for that class. But
Yes.
the point is I didn't really know much about her, and I went for several years in my Catholic faith, not really knowing much about her, not even knowing how to pray the rosary or what it was. But I just through grace was able to just accept her. That was not a hurdle for me. But I did know that I needed her, like on this very deep level, some way. I knew I needed her, and I knew that she was important. I just didn't know how or what. The first time that I ever remember praying a Hail Mary on my own, that wasn't in some group class that I was in, I was experiencing a great deal of fear and anxiety that I didn't even know I had. I don't consider myself a super anxious person, but I was still in RCIA. I wasn't even officially Catholic yet. And I had to have an MRI done on my abdomen. Didn't know there was something going on, didn't know what it was. And I didn't think twice about it. I had had an MRI done on my knee before. I knew what this was about. I worked at a radiology clinic in college, so I was around them, and so no big deal. Until they put my head in that teeny tiny little machine, and my subconscious freaked out, totally freaked out. I didn't know what was going on. My emotions, my anxiety were like through the roof. I told my doctor afterwards, I was like, I didn't even know I had that in me. I just freaked out. And I didn't even know really what to do. And I didn't, they were playing this obnoxious music through the speakers in the MRI. I mean, I really wish they kind of would have asked me what music I would have liked for them to play. And maybe they did, and just nonchalant said, I don't care, whatever. But it was really obnoxious. I do remember that. And I'm laying there and tears just start streaming down my face, and they're like going in my ears because you're laying there and you can't move. And I'm just so anxious. And I just remembered all of a sudden I started praying the Hail Mary. Like it was coming just from a space inside of me that I didn't even know was there. I was like, oh. And that really is what got me through that experience. And so a little bit about what I do for a living. For the next couple of months until I change my job, I work in the area of child development, and I teach teachers about social, emotional, mental health for children, emotional management, classroom management, how to teach children to calm their bodies and their brains. So we do a lot of looking at, from a neuroscientific point of view, of the different parts of the brain, where's behavior coming from, what's occurring, what's happening. And so there's your most primal part of your brain is your survival state or your brain stem. And that's the part that has the fight or flight in it. So if you feel threatened, it's triggered by threat. If you feel threatened for your life in any way, either real or perceived, so a wolf could chase you through the woods, or someone could just say the wrong thing and it feels threatening to you. And either way, your brain will start operating from its survival state. It only has fight or flight. It has no words. It only has like physical movement so that you can fight the wolf or run from the wolf, right? That's because it's the most primitive part of your brain. And then you have the emotional state that's triggered by when the world doesn't go your way and all that comes out of your mouth, and it's never pretty. And so that's when we say things that we really don't mean, because it comes out in those emotionally harsh ways to try to protect our emotional self. And then we have the wise thinking part of our brain and our executive state. And that's where all of our thinking, our memory is housed up here, all of our wisdom, our values, our morals, all that's housed up here. So I knew that because I knew I was freaked out down into that survival state and I was freezing. So there's fight, flight, there's also freeze. Freeze is surrender to the trauma that's occurring around you. So if you have like a pack of wolves that's about to eat you for lunch and there is no fight or flight that's going to help, your body literally starts to shut down. And so that's the freeze part of that brain. And so I knew there's no words. There's no words in there. So that had to come from like the deepest part of my spirit, because I hadn't memorized the Hail Mary. I'd heard it a few times. I didn't know it. But in that moment, when my body was shoved into that fight or flight moment, that's all that could come out was, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. And that's what got me through that. And I came out going, wow, she must be really, really important. If my spirit can come up with that in that moment, I know that's really, really important. And so I did relax. I got through the MRI without hurting anyone, including myself. Yeah, I didn't have like this full-blown panic attack, and it was because of her interceding for me. I know that now. I did not know that then. You know, I didn't have to understand it. That's what I think I'm trying to say about all this sacramental and devotional stuff. I didn't have to understand it. It's the belief that grants us the access to that grace. We say that in the Mass. What is that? My brain. We say that. It'll come to me. It'll come to me. It'll come to me. I don't know. It'll come to me because it's really powerful for me. And now my brain is in a different place.
All the stress.
No. Enter under my roof.
Okay, I'm not worthy.
That you should. There you go. I am not worthy that you should enter under my roof. That came alive for me for the first time when a priest said Mass for my family in my home. And I was like, whoa, man. What I think I'm trying to convey is you don't have to understand it for the Lord to be calling you to it and for it to be important. It's our belief and our participation in that belief that grants us that grace. And so that's really the day that I became truly aware of how much I really needed Mary and how much she was there for me. I don't want to speak past English discussion.
Not parts for me yet.
Okay. So as a part of that process that I teach teachers and parents about, we talk about having a safe place where children can go, where we can go as adults, where we need to have this space. For us, we can have it in our minds because we have what's called mature internal speech. So we can have this safe place internally that helps us to access our ability to calm our emotions and find that inner peace. Children don't have that. And so we have to actually create an external safe place for them. And that starts with their safe adults that are around them, but then we build like a physical space and teach them how to use it, which is training them to then learn how to use the mental internal space. And so I knew that it just connected for me because of what I teach and what I do. It connected to me that Mary was that safe place for me. I didn't know why. I didn't know what really all that meant yet, but I knew that she was that safe place for me. And so I'm just going to read this for a second because I'm losing my brain all over the place. I talk to adults about how until a child is able to have that developmentally appropriate place in their own mind, they have to have this physical space. So the first safe place, ideally for children, is the womb. And then when a baby is born, the next safe place is here. Why is it here? Because of your heart. That beat, that regulation of your heartbeat helps to regulate their internal system. We get it wrong a lot when we do this. It's okay. Shh. Because we're externally like making the stress level go up when internally we just need that. But we have it here, and then we have a physical space, and then we teach them how to use it internally. So this brings that calm, that place of peace that we need for our bodies, our mind, our spirit, and we have to care for all three. We have to care for our body, we have to care for our mind, we have to care for our spirit. We're made up of all three parts, and so we have to regain calm in all of those places. I may be standing here very calm in front of you, and mentally my mind is like, right? Anybody know that feeling? Okay. Or we have calm in our body and our mind, but there's just some stirring in us. And we're like, I don't know what that is. And that's our spirit is not at peace with something. And so we have to bring that level of calm and peace to all three. So, led by the Holy Spirit, sparked by my own natural inclination to engage in meditative type prayer, because that's just my personality. I like a lot of visualization. I like quiet. I'm actually a very like loud, talkative person. I like being around people. I don't know what you call those, like extroverted introverts or introverted extroverts. I don't know. But I need lots of quiet. So I found this sort of refuge in imaginative prayer. I found this safe place with Mary in this space of imaginative prayer. That's perfect. Yes. Okay. So we'll come back after dinner and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. We're going to practice it just a little bit. And then, yeah. So now I'm like sweating.
Yeah.
All right. Have a nice dinner. I don't know what it is. What's for dinner, Susan? Last time I was here was breakfast. I love breakfast for dinner. Oh, pause Sheila. Do I have to stop sharing first? I think I've been operating on an old. Oh, there we go. I got it. I got it. Yeah. All right. So before we went to dinner, talk to you about how I'm kind of just drawn to more meditative type imaginative prayer. I'm going to start talking from that point, and then we'll practice some imaginative prayer. So I was involved in this spiritual mentoring course a while back. And one of the exercises that they ask, they have a different exercise every week that you went through and you practice. One of these exercises was called the garden of your heart. And it led us to imagine a garden in our heart and imagine what was there, what flowers could we see, what did it look like, imagine Jesus there. And then imagine ourselves walking over to Jesus. And then just like that, for me, the garden of my soul, sanctuary of my soul was born. Saint Elizabeth of the Trinity once instructed her friend to, quote unquote, build a little cell within your soul as I do. Remember that God is there and enter into it from time to time. When you feel nervous or you're unhappy, quickly seek refuge there and tell the master about it. And so that's really what I've done. That's one of the things that I love the most. So you talk about these sacramentals or devotions that you're drawn to just because of your personality or your story, or the Lord draws you to them. Imaginative prayer is one of those things for me. And so just like many places in scripture remind us to do, I come to seek refuge from the Lord and just be in that quiet, still space with him. And it's just, I kind of call it my little spiritual sanctuary. So when I pray this way, it's usually in a quiet, solitary place. So this is not, I don't go into imaginative prayers. I'm praying before meals, like don't do your devotion at the table. I begin by closing my eyes and I can see the flowers that are there. Each one is very carefully planted there. I know what they are. I know what they mean. There's very unique intention behind each one of them. There's also saints that are there. So when I close my eyes, I envision this in my mind. All those flowers are there. They all have a very intentional purpose, but there's also like this group of saints that are there. And it's all these saints that the Lord has just brought into my life that have been meaningful to me over time. And so they're all there. The archangels are standing behind me. Mary and Joseph are here to the right, and the Holy Spirit just hovers all around, and Jesus is right in front of me. And behind him is just this kind of like open expanse. So this is my experience that I'm sharing with you. It's like deeply personal, by the way. So behind him is this kind of open expanse where light is shining. That's just in my mind. This is where God the Father is in heaven. Yeah, I don't see him, I don't see his face, but I know that in this place, that's where he is. St. John of the Cross tells us that the inner stillness where meditation leads, the Spirit secretly anoints the soul and heals our deepest wounds. So that's exactly been my experience. So sometimes I come here very intentionally, like I go into this chapel over here on a time that I think I'm going to be there by myself on purpose, that I'm just there, just me and the Lord. I'm very intentional about it. Other times it's just very spontaneous. Sometimes I pray and I just soak in a time of worship. Sometimes I take the things that are bothering me, my hurts, my pains, my problems, to Jesus and just allow him to speak into my life about those things, anoint my soul, and heal my deepest wounds, as St. John of the Cross says. But when I come here in prayer, I open my heart to the Spirit, and many times there's this interaction, and he shows me things that bring me peace. He ministers healing, teaches me important truths, and helps me to grow. So my question for you guys is, do you have this kind of sort of place where you can grow in relationship with God? Do you have a consecrated place of prayer where you go to seek the Lord, either this physical space or this kind of mental imagery kind of space? Maybe that place for you would be a garden, kind of like mine. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's more of a beautiful cathedral or a hidden deep in a forest or just perched on the bank of a river or high on a mountain. Maybe you don't have a place at all. That's okay. And you don't know where to begin. In that case, I invite you to remember what I said earlier. So we are made up physical, spiritual, mental. And as we're needing to seek refuge in a physical, safe place for our mental, emotional, physical health, that first safe place for us begins outside the womb. That first safe place in a physical sense is at the chest of our caregiver, usually a mother. And so I invite you to seek our spiritually nurturing mother, which is Mary. So if we carry, that idea of this being the physical safe place over to our spiritual, then it makes sense that Mary could be that safe place for us, that she's there for us to bring us against her chest, to feel the beat of her heart, to help to calm our spirit and lovingly bring us to Jesus, because that's what she does, is she brings us to her son. So I invite you to allow Mary, and when you have the class on Mary, you'll learn more, but allow her to take your hand and lead you to a special place of prayer. What do you want to do?
Do you all want to do this in here? So she's going to play an imaginative prayer meditation. We can do it in this room or we can go in the chapel, which is a very beautiful chapel. All right, he answers me, so we're going.
There's a lot more to this story that I'm not going to share right now, but the point is that I invite you to seek out, especially as you're on this journey through RCIA, to seek out a place that is a safe place of refuge for you spiritually. I mean, it can be physically also, but spiritually, where is that for you? And so we're going to go in here and I'm going to play this guided meditative prayer. And this is leading you, well, I'll just let it speak for itself. But this might be your cup of tea, it might not, but whatever it is for you, I invite you to find that sacramental, that devotion that brings you in closer relationship with God, because that's what it's all about.
And just like she said this in the last class she taught, that Christian meditation is different from what our society talks about right now, which is mindful meditation. And mindful meditation is an emptying of your mind. Christian meditation is not an emptying of your mind, it's a seeking of the good and the holy. Because if you empty your mind, it can get filled with garbage. And I mean that, like, they've actually done studies where for some people, the mindful meditation ends up being harmful because of the garbage that comes in your mind. So this is like a very much, when you're meditating Christian prayer, you want to seek what is good and what is holy. Which is truth, which is a person, which is Jesus Christ.
So what I just gave you is a printed out version of what you're going to hear. Did you have a question?
I
Sorry.
want to just kind of like share a little bit of perspective on that.
Yeah.
Like think about your friends, and like when you have a friend and you've been hanging out with a person that you start to respect and you gain a lot of trust for, how you guys start like kind of trading personalities. You start picking out some of their tendencies and start picking out some of yours. And so like with God, obviously like he doesn't change. He is I am. He is how he is. And so all these things are like to try and bring your mind to him, so your relationship with him can grow and you start to become like him. And his grace is transformative, powerful. It's a lot of things, and he's there for you. But like, unless you find a way to make time for him, there's so much you can do, because it's kind of like waiting on you. It's like I want to help you.
Yeah.
And you come to me. So that's what I would say. Like these things are all just to try and get you to spend time with him, to be with him in different ways.
And then, yeah, because if you don't know him, like you won't be transformed into that heart of Christ. And you can say, Lord, Lord, what is it that Pash says, Lord, Lord? And he says, I do not know you. And this is how you get to know God, is in prayer like this.
Yes.
Okay.
So what I gave you is just a written out version of it. It actually is on my Jansen's business is called Whole Catholic. And so it actually is on the Whole Catholic YouTube channel. So if you ever want to play it again or you want to share it with somebody, you can find it there. But we'll go into the chapel and do it.